Is the gap generator an over-unity device? Well, today's date is February the 28th of 2013. And with this video update, I hope to put to rest anybody's doubt about whether it is or isn't. I've had lots of input from people around the world about this gap power device. Lots and lots of suggestions and questions. I'm going to give you just a few, the ones I feel were most important. You must measure the input volts and amps at the batteries. You need to install full-wave bridge rectifiers on the output side to make sure all voltage is DC. You need to install capacitors across the contacts of the relays to prevent them from arcing. Do those coils get hot? How much heat is generated in those coils? Those are the ones I found to be the most helpful, and the Lord knows I need the help. Other than my own stupidity, I feel the biggest problem I've had is how to present this in a simple yet convincing way. Using the suggestions and answering the questions I just mentioned, I feel will give a much better presentation. Before I give the results, let me give a little history. The first video I posted was of my first device, a Rotary version, in 2009. You see it here. It has 16 coils, with one 3-inch diameter magnet attached to each. The thickness of the magnets are 1 inch. It's using both amplification and neutralization. The second video was of my second design, a 1-cylinder linear type. I mainly demonstrated its power in force by lifting weight. Also in this video, I demonstrate how this thing is a generator, and how just the action of the piston moving back and forth produces electricity, with the magnets on the piston moving to and from the coil. In this video, the 1-cylinder is in neutralization mode only. On April the 12th of 2011, I made another video of the 1-cylinder, where I demonstrated producing electricity. I try my best at that time to explain what's going on. The light is being operated on the portion of the cycle that has no power applied from the batteries. It's powered only by the gap generator. On August the 2nd of 2011, I posted another video. It's of the same 1-cylinder model. The only difference is I replaced one of the 3-inch diameter magnets on the piston with a 2-inch diameter and got quite an increase in performance. On July the 4th of 2012, I posted an update. It's of a 2-cylinder model. In that video, there's a chapter called Animation. In it, I describe how this device works. For those more interested in this project, you may want to review that video. It's only 3 minutes long. In that same video, there's a chapter called Explaining Input and Output. Now that's where I really want to concentrate. No matter how much power is passing through the system, it's the power being produced by the gap generator and the power it takes to operate the gap generator that's important. Until now, I've not been able to do a good input test in amplification and neutralization mode without having the generator under load, burning lights or something similar. It would always burn up the relay contacts or blow fuses. I've recently overcome that dilemma and can now do a proper testing. Using the suggestions, I modified the gap generator. I also changed the timing somewhat. The RPM is now approximately 660, where it was about 580, which helps. I also removed the batteries not needed. I've had several questions about why so many. I also removed the DC to DC converter. Now, the same test as before. I'm only going to check the input volts and amps at the batteries. Here we have a photo of the scope showing the volts and amps input to the gap generator. The scope displays 40 volts and the amps 1.23. 40 times 1.23 equals 49.2 watts input. When I put the data from the scope into the spreadsheet, it was 49.26 watts input to the gap generator. Here we have a photo of the scope showing the output by the piston action only. The volts are 11.6 and the amps are 2.12, making the output watts by the piston action 24.59. Here we have a photo of the scope showing the output when either amplification or neutralization is turned off. Never mind the 23.2 volts and the 2.84 amps. I'm only using the second half of the cycle. The watts output each time was 15. Now 15 multiplied times 4 times each cycle equals 60 watts output by the gap generator when the magnetic force returns to the coils, when either amplification or neutralization is turned off. 24.59 watts output by the piston, plus 60 watts output when the amplification and neutralization is turned off, equals 84.59 total output watts by the gap generator. Divide that by the 49.26 watts input, and you have 171.71% of unity, with 35.33 watts over unity. Now that might not sound like much, but if you can produce 35.33 watts over unity, you can produce 35.33 trillion watts over unity. The number one question I get is concerning heat. Do those coils get hot? How much heat is generated in those coils? Well, in this video, you can see for yourself. I've done some heat tests before, but not as detailed as you're about to see. On July the 6th of 2012, I did a heat test where I just tested the heat generated in the coils of the gap generator. In that test, I ran the generator for 30 minutes in neutralization mode. The temperature in the coils went from room temperature to what I would say warm. The test method was touching the back of my fingers to the epoxy-covered wire of each coil. I then switched to amplification and neutralization mode. In less than 30 minutes, the temperature had dropped to what I felt it was at the beginning, which was room temperature. I ran the test for another 30 minutes, for a total of 90 minutes. The temperature remained at what I felt to be room temperature. On December the 10th of 2012, at 6:30 p.m., I received a phone call from a man named Steve Goldsmith from Canada. He told me to measure the heat input and output, and that if the heat generated on the output side was higher than the heat generated on the input side, it was over unity. After thinking about it for a day or two, I came up with what I feel is a good way to do just that. Whether it proves over unity or not, I don't know, but it is one heck of a good test. Here I have two coils in front of the coils on the gap generator. They're the same size as the ones on the generator. The one on the left is on the output side of the left coil on the generator. The one on the right is on the output side of the right coil on the generator. Here I'm checking the temperature of all 4 coils just prior to doing the test. On the left coils, the temperature on the input coil is 71, and on the output coil is 73.5. On the right coils, the temperature on the input coil is 71.6, and the output coil is 72. I ran the test for 15 minutes. Each minute into the test, I take the temperature of the 4 coils and record it. I think you'll be surprised. The length of the actual video is 17.5 minutes. I've condensed it down to 3 minutes and 48 seconds. After 1 minute, the temperature of the left input coil is 72.5, and the left output coil is 89.9. The temperature of the right input coil is 71.6, and the right output coil is 82.5. All temperatures are in Fahrenheit. After 15 minutes, the temperature of the left input coil is 73.7, and the left output coil is 211.3. The temperature of the right input coil is 73.7, and the right output coil is 185.5. Here you see the data in a spreadsheet. The output coil on the left is 2.87 times hotter than the input coil on the left. The output coil on the right is 2.52 times hotter than the input coil on the right. Just why that is, I don't know. Like I said earlier, whether this test proves over unity or not, I don't know. To me, this test does demonstrate how the gap generator reduces the input power to the coils on the generator. After much thought about the gap generator and how it works, I'm beginning to think the best way to build this for mass production and for the best performance is the same as the first device. A rotary style, just like this. The only exception would be to add a magnet to the trailing end of each arc, or maybe 2 or 3. Amplification and neutralization could be used just as before, or just amplification twice for each arc per cycle. The main reason for me thinking this is a better method is, after discovering that gap technology is a generator itself without attaching an alternator, it dawned on me how quiet the rotary device is over the linear models. It also has 16 coils on it, which I believe could produce 16 times the power of the two-cylinder linear model. That's 565 watts over unity, not including what could be produced by attaching an alternator to it, which I've done before. One may tend to think that the 16-coil rotary would only produce 8 times the power, but the rotary has 4 arcs where the linear only has 1 piston. Each coil on the linear is powered twice in amplification and neutralization mode, where on the rotary each coil would be powered 4 times. A rotary with 24 coils could possibly produce close to 1,000 watts. Personally, I think it could produce over 1,000 watts. The rotary is so smooth and quiet and wouldn't take up much space. The linear is not very quiet. In all but the first linear videos, I muted the sound and dubbed in my voice. In the first linear video, we were lifting the weight. I was quite a distance from the device. I'm going to play a short portion of the heat test video with the sound not muted so you can hear it. The audio was recorded with the camera's microphone. Now let's take a look at the rotary. The video you're watching now is muted. I'm going to play a portion of the video with it not muted. All the audio will be real time, no dubbing. In the first part of the video, it's operating on 18 volts. And the last part of the video, it's on 24 volts. The video is 31 seconds long, and all audio you'll be hearing is actual. You'll notice quite a bit of difference in the speed, which only makes sense. Quite a difference. Working on this project, I feel as though I've been on a round-the-world trip, and now I'm right back where I started. I've learned a lot, spent lots of money, but I do feel it's closer to market. Speaking of which, I estimate it would take quite a bit of money to bring this device to market. Coming up with an idea and getting it ready for market are two different animals. There's an old saying, 10% brain, 90% brawn. In other words, there's a lot more muscle in the process than there is brain. My brain work on this project hasn't cost me any money, but the brain work and muscle of others have. Now I'm a big fan of Sterling Allen and his website pestwiki.com, Pure Energy Systems. On his website, he posted something called Idea to Market Flow Chart. I'm in agreement with what he states in that chart. So using his chart, I put together some information as to just where on that chart I feel the gap power technology is. Based on my personal years of experience, I feel the final dollar amount is fairly accurate. I'm not looking for any money from anyone. I don't intend to set up an operation to produce the gap generator. I just want to prove that over unity is possible. I hope others will pick up where I presently am in the process and finish it. If you don't have or can't gain access to the kind of money on this chart, don't contact me about setting up a business. I will share all information I have with whomever does set up an operation to do this. I hope this video has been of some help to those interested in such things as this.